Díomh agus fáilte Ash, you're all very welcome to another episode of Irish in Toronto. Today I'll be chatting with Robin Bury. I recently read Robin's memoir, On the Margin, in which he writes about his life, particularly about growing up as the son of a Protestant clergyman in County Cork. We discuss some of that during this episode, as well as Robin's move to Toronto nearly a decade ago, in his mid-70s. Born in India, raised in Ireland, period spent in the UK, Kenya, and now residing in Canada, Robin has a great story to tell. Stay tuned in particular for an especially interesting story about access to contraception in Ireland when Robin began dating, and his opinions on it. I have provided a link for you if you wish to purchase Robin's memoir to hear more fascinating stories. I would still encourage people to download the episodes and to share them with friends and family. Downloads are the easiest indicator for me to gauge how many people I'm reaching with these conversations, so I would really appreciate it. I begin our chat by asking Robin why he moved to Toronto in 2016 when he was in his mid-70s.
I have a son and daughter who emigrated here really a long time ago, actually. They were educated in Ireland. They went to university in Dublin, UCD and TCD, and they emigrated. My daughter met a Canadian when she was studying. She studied German, by the way, but she went to study in Germany and met a Canadian, and they later got married, and she came out to live with him here. That's why she really came here. And she's been working here since. She is, in Trinity, she did economics and German, and somebody said to me, she'll be ruling the world with those two subjects.
Jesus Christ.
And then she came out and married him, and she lived in Kitchener-Waterloo. Does that mean anything?
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a university there.
Yeah.
That's where she started.
Yeah.
And now she's at York.
Lovely.
And she's a librarian.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
So and then my son came out. He did a postgrad here in the University of Toronto in electronic engineering. And his boss then offered him a job in a company he was running here in Toronto, and so he stayed on. It just kind of happened, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But he's very much in touch with Ireland.
Good.
And he goes back.
Excellent.
He's there now.
Excellent.
With his family.
Good. So that was a good decision for you to come out, and you happen to have two children here, so
I had,
it made sense. Yeah.
And part of that too was I got, my mum was Canadian. She was brought up in Edmonton and went to, her dad was a lecturer at the university there, and she went to education there. She went to university, and it's a bit of a story. My dad was abandoned by, you've probably said that, and he went to meet his mother and his stepfather in Edmonton, and met my mum there, and they got married in British Columbia, and then, as you know, went to India. But the point I'm trying to make is my Canadian citizenship came through, and that's another reason I came here.
Interesting. But you weren't, you received Canadian citizenship, but you weren't born here. You were born somewhere else.
India. Dad was a clergyman.
Now the story is getting interesting. So your father was based in India.
Yeah.
Working as, what was his official title? Clergyman.
Yeah. He was in the Anglican Church in India, and he was a curate, which is low grade in the Church of Ireland, or the Anglican Church, and he. To this day, I'm not sure why he went to India. What was it that drew him there,
He seems like
1939?
Yeah.
I was born there in 40. Yeah. Go on, sorry.
But you're right to move. And were you the first born in the family?
My sister was born in Edmonton.
But you're right to move with a young child and then expecting a new one to India. It's not like it's next door or across the road. Or I know it was part of the empire, but it was. It's a different. Yeah. Maybe it's just hard for me to comprehend. But it doesn't seem like the most logical logical
It
move.
was. I still don't really know why he went. I honestly mean that. And it was never really explained to me by my parents. But they had quite a good life there. You probably know from reading the book.
Yeah.
They had quite a good social, very much keeping the whites to themselves in their own club.
Yeah.
Playing bridge.
And what was that like growing up for you?
Drinking gin and tonics. I can't remember a lot about it.
Yeah, you were young when you...
I was so young. I was only 7 when we left.
Okay.
I have nice memories of India, though.
Yeah,
It was a nice house we lived in, and I had what they call an ayah. Does that mean anything to you?
Not really, no.
It's like someone who looks after children.
Okay, like a childminder or a babysitter, but and nanny or something,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my sister was also with me.
Yeah.
And so there were 2 of us there, And anyway, sorry, go on.
People, the listeners will be wondering, what's this got to do with Ireland? When does Ireland come into the picture? So where do you go at 7 years of age?
Believe it or not, Skibbereen.
Of all places.
Of all places. County Cork.
Yeah.
My dad was brought up by an uncle and aunt in Donegal. And he actually went to school in an English school. The age of 8, poor man, poor boy. And then he went on to Edmonton. When he left school, he went out there and worked in a bank, which was arranged by his stepfather. Anyway, he went back to India, we talked about, and then I suppose he felt, well, I was brought up in Ireland, and I'm quite happy to go back there. And he applied for a job as a clergyman from India, and he was offered a job as a curate in Skibbereen, where they're my early memories of living in Ireland.
What was it like
small
being the son of an Anglican curate in Skibbereen in the 1940s?
Well, we were aware we were a bit in a different camp, if you like. The vast majority of people obviously were Catholics. We had a small group in the town of Skibbereen of mainly shopkeepers who were Protestant or Church of Ireland. Then there were a few posh prods nearby.
Were you one of the posh prods?
No.
Okay.
No. We were middle of the road, I'd say.
Yeah.
My dad would be, he would be friends with. There were the people in Castletownshend who were in the British Army. One of them, poor man, was shot dead by the IRA. That's how I describe that.
What time period are we talking about here?
He was shot dead, before we arrived.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was, God help us, in the 30s.
Okay.
Yeah. Somerville Large was his name. He was accused of recruiting Catholic lads for the British Army. And actually what happened is, some of them came to his house, because I've looked into it, in the neighbourhood, and they wanted work, they needed work. And he offered them names of people to write to. And this guy, there's a brilliant book written about it actually by, I'll send you the name of the book, the whole story, by a man called O'Neill, who came from that part of the world. He investigated. And he found out it was that guy, Kevin Barry. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, it does, of course, yeah.
Who was behind it?
Yeah, okay.
Or one of his friends.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I won't go on about that. But they were posh prods around.
But it's interesting.
They were.
I grew up in Clare, East Clare, and I went to...
Did you?
Yeah, and I went to the only kind of... the only illustration of Anglican Ireland in our village was the library had been converted from the original Protestant church, which is a lovely building, and it's very nicely maintained.
Is it still there?
But now it's the library.
It's the library.
So the interior is the library, and the outside, the graveyard is reasonably well maintained.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I never really, apart from that, I never really copped it. And then I went to college and went to UL, and we met a few people from Sligo.
University of Limerick, yeah. Okay, go on.
Yeah, and I meet these people from Sligo, and after a few weeks we're kind of friendly with them, and then after a few weeks I realised they'd say something or some sort of contextual thing, and I kind of realised, are they joking? But I realised they're Protestants. They all went to Sligo Grammar School.
Oh yeah, that's a good school.
And I thought the first time I'd meet a Protestant to be, how could you be friends? You know, like how could we? Because I was.
How would you get on with them?
How would we get on with them? And we probably wouldn't get on.
No.
This was my thinking as an 18-year-old.
No.
Obviously quite innocent. But sure, we were great friends, and there was no differences between us at all, really.
That's super.
There was, and we'd little differences. We never spoke about opinions on territory and stuff like that. But
sure.
But just normal everyday life.
Sure.
What I'm saying is, for you growing up in the 40s and 50s in Cork and feeling like a little bit of an outsider as a child, despite the fact that you're more or less the same as every person in the...
But the funny, because Dad was a clergyman, I think because of that, we tended to mix, obviously, with the community, small community of prods in the area, And I went to school, like Bill German, by the way, Middleton College, which was a good distance away from Skibbereen.
Cork's big county, the further side of Cork,
And I went there at the age of 8. Now that's young.
Boarding school, obviously, at 8 years old.
School. It was tough going away, and I was lonely. It took time to settle in. I mean, a horrible headmaster, bully, awful man. I talk about him in the book.
You do, and we kind of associate a lot of that kind of behaviour, you know, with the typical Christian brothers in Ireland, but
you do.
It seems to be ubiquitous. Doesn't matter what school or
that's it.
The culture was kind of created for that unfortunate relationship.
Canes, and he used to hit you across the face with his hands in class. I sent one boy, "I'll send you home. Your parents won't recognise you." Can you imagine?
No, you're right.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. But you survived nonetheless.
I survived, and I did reasonably well. I was okay, and I played the usual Protestant games: hockey, and tennis. Because the school, and rugby and cricket. Yeah.
I've always been rugby's kind of the unusual one, isn't it? It's almost been accepted by
very much so.
And soccer, if you want to, but rugby's kind of totally accepted now. It's almost
totally.
Well, I assume there was a time, you know, when you were growing up in certain parts where they were the Protestant sports.
Yeah.
And they may be, you know, if you go to certain, I suppose, look at the certain schools in Ireland that do well in rugby, you know, boys' schools.
Oh yeah, there were some. You did right. There were some very good schools, by the way, playing rugby. Catholic schools.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It kind of changed that narrative, and it's like I wonder, you know, when that narrative started to change and all that. We teach it a bit here at the university. I teach a course called Sport in Ireland, and we look at how the narrative changed from, you know, the people involved with the nationalist movement being anti-rugby, and then how eventually over time it kind of, you know, crept in and then became accepted along with soccer, and then today it's there's still a distinction, I suppose, but I don't think there's many people in Ireland who despise the sport of rugby solely based on the fact that it's in quotations, a British sport or a foreign sport or whatever.
Yeah, and it's played around the world too. It's not played here, is it much? Or is it?
Well, they have a national team.
Do they?
They've qualified for the World Cup, but it's there would be a big background in the Canadian rugby from Irish, British expats, which makes sense, obviously.
It does.
But I'm not sure how strong it's obviously not as popular here as the other sports. But so you like it's being I suppose a member of an Anglican, and then you write a book about Southern Unionists, and I don't know if you considered yourself a unionist, but you definitely had opinions and have opinions on the Irish state as you saw it growing up, being an outsider, and how maybe that could have been done better.
Well, we were wondering because there were things that were, how can I say to you, well, you did have a very dominant Catholic Church. It's gone, I know it's gone now. But it was very dominant. It was a very priest-ridden society once. I know that's gone. But you were aware you were an outsider. And that was I don't know, it didn't probably affect you much because you were young. But did it? No.
The Catholic Church kind of domination.
The whole control of morals and ethics and
I think I was just
the state.
I was born in the 90s. I think I was just coming towards the end of it.
Was it?
But having said that, I still look back at my primary school experience and kind of how it kind of centered around the, confession, communion, confirmation.
Of course.
I didn't call it sixth class. I called it the confirmation year. Do you know what? That was the most important thing to do.
Okay.
So
right.
Yeah, of course there were effects like that, and I think similar to, there was kind of an understanding that if you went to mass that you were a good child.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
Whether you believed in God or not, I don't know. But if you went to mass, at least you were a good child. But actually, genuinely praying and that type of thing, and believing, I suppose same as any religion, for a lot of people, it kind of becomes a ritual, a daily thing rather than an actual instilled belief. So no, it didn't. It wouldn't affect me in the same negative way, I suppose, as the generation.
Well, that's good.
Before me.
That's good.
Yeah.
And this, I just brought this for Par because this is a superb book.
We're looking at a book here now. Well, Holy God, My Life as an Irish Catholic Agnostic Correspondent by Patsy McGarry. Thank you very much.
Irish Times. And I'll lend it to you if you'd like to read it.
I would like it, yes.
He's a super writer and he's writing about what we're talking about.
Excellent.
The Protestants and the Catholics and the nature of the Irish state and how influenced it was by Catholicism. And it's very sympathetic and comprehensive book.
Good, I enjoy that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So it's very quite timely actually. We're speaking 4 days after there was an event last Saturday in Toronto.
What was
by
that?
The Friends of Sinn Féin. They organised an event that was a kind of consultation commission on the future of Ireland. And there was general open conversation about, now most people in the room, in fact I'd say everyone in the room wants a united Ireland, but the natural conversation about a compromise and how do you work with different people.
Sure.
But I get the feeling from reading your book, there was no such compromise made when the Irish Free State was created in 22 and wrote its constitution in 37, for people like you and your father, your father was, you're all Irish citizens.
We were Irish citizens.
But there was no such compromise made for you, is what I'm understanding.
I think we tended to just, what he writes in that book is that the motto of Southern Protestants after independence was "do not disturb." And we wanted to keep quiet. And we didn't want to upset our neighbours, so we tended not to say things except behind closed doors. And would be critical then of the Catholic Church and the Catholic state and so on. And
which would have been difficult at the time.
That's gone, I think. I think today that people don't, but they're very anxious. There are only 3% Protestants left. It was 11% before independence. And about 40,000 left during the Civil War period in independence. Because
intimidation and things like that.
Yeah, there was intimidation and well, actually an interesting point worth making is it was the British government who actually took power away from the Protestant community, both local government and national, and it went into the hands of the Catholic community. And the Land Acts saw to it that the big landowners lost most of their land, and it quite properly was given at good terms to Catholic farmers, small farms.
This is pre-independence,
and that happened before independence, by the way, which most people probably don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's not often told. And a story like yours is not like people would be listening to this, and none of this is discounting intimidation and things that took place north of the border at post-partition.
That's true.
But for your experience, it doesn't sound like it was the most pleasant. Now, I don't know, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but it sounds like it might have been a difficult experience to grow up in a neighbourhood or in an environment where you are an outsider and you're kind of looked at as being the enemy almost.
Well, I think you've got a point, actually. You're the old ruling class of the ex-British community. You're right. And so, don't you think it's understandable they kept quiet?
100%.
They didn't do. Sorry, go on.
No, you're right. I can see how they kept quiet. I could also see how they'd leave and just.
Well, quite a lot just said, "Well, go to England or Canada."
Or Canada. That's what I was going to say as well. Yeah. So, but your father kind of stuck it out for a considerable amount of time.
He did actually. He came back in 47 and he died at the age of 71, and that would have been in 74.
Yeah.
And he's buried in Cloyne Cathedral graveyard, which is nice. I like that.
Yeah.
So he spent his time mainly in Cloyne,
Yeah.
as the dean.
Yeah.
But it wasn't isolated. You're right. It was an isolated community.
Yeah. No, it's just
We did meet for bridge games and so on with the Catholic community.
that was the game that was used to bridge the gap.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
And my doctor would have been a Catholic doctor, so there was no problem with any of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Normal things that you would expect nowadays, just for
Well,
for
you
that
take
to
it for
happen.
granted. Well said.
Yeah.
You take it for granted. Yes,
Cloyne is where your father worked and most of his life and was buried. Is home to the great Christy Ring, the greatest hurler
That's
of all
right.
time.
And he was living there when I was there.
What?
Yeah, he was.
What's your
He was a hero.
really? I was going to ask, like, we were talking about sport a little bit. What's the relationship like for you as a you spoke about playing the Protestant sports?
That's right.
Was there an entry, like, would it have been in any way normal for someone like you to play hurling or Gaelic football or anything like that?
But you see, no, and I'll tell you, we never did. We never played it at school.
In Middleton College?
In Middleton and then later Columbus College in Dublin, they wouldn't play, as you just said,
Yeah.
hurling
Yeah.
or Gaelic football.
Yeah.
It was cultural.
Yeah.
It was cultural. So we would never go to those matches
Yeah.
in Dublin.
And
you
even
know.
that isolates you a little bit from just the
Oh, it
everyday
does.
conversation,
Oh, it does.
around the
It
town
does.
or around, yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Just,
It puts you on a slightly different platform.
yeah. No, it happens. I taught in
Where?
an Irish-speaking school, an all-Irish immersion school in the north side of Cork City, Gael Colostra Vira, in the North Monastery, and the only sports when I was there were hurling and Gaelic football, but they've introduced soccer since. No, it's not a huge school, but there are schools. I'm not just speaking for that school, but there are schools where there may be an all-Irish speaking school nowadays, in 2025.
Joe.
And there's no soccer or rugby allowed, so there's that kind of, and sometimes that's dictated by the principal, but then by anyone else. But it's just whereas we come to Canada and it's kind of taken for granted that almost every school will offer as many sports as they can, logistically obviously, but there's no distinction made between, well, that's an Indian sport or that's an Irish sport.
Oh,
or
I
that's
see
a
what
British
you're
sport.
at. I get you.
Yeah,
I
whereas
get
we
you.
in Ireland have made that distinction since the foundation of the state, basically.
And how can I put it? Some of the more expensive, posh Catholic schools. You'll help me here. What's the name of the very good school John Bruton went to? Is it Clongowes?
Maybe Clongowes.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They played cricket,
Yeah.
and they played tennis,
Yeah.
and they played rugby.
Yeah.
Do you know the
James Joyce went to Clongowes.
He did. Well done.
Yeah.
He did.
So
He did. And
yeah.
they played the so-called Protestant games
Yeah.
in those schools.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mixed up.
When you think about it,
Yeah.
And how did it affect did you ever feel in any way, we spoke about being isolated, but did you ever feel intimidated in any way like that?
No, there was. I think because we were a very small community, we didn't cause any trouble whatsoever,
Yeah.
and we usually kind of led a life that was based on paying your bills on time and being polite to your neighbours and so on. We didn't have I never had any intimidation, to be honest with you, any.
Good.
Which is great.
Yeah,
Which is great.
That is good to hear, yeah. But I do understand you struggle with the things like, something that would be close to my heart, the obligation to study the Irish language and things like that.
We did. And then, you see, we used to go home and then my parents would say, well, what's the point? No one speaks it. And no one did speak it around where we lived. So we were given negative vibes about the Irish language. Yeah.
But that wasn't a specific thing to the Anglican community.
It wasn't,
at that
was
time
it?
period. I think I can understand.
I don't think so. Sorry, go
No,
on.
I can understand why a child learning a language that they if unless they happen to just be naturally good at it the first day, or they may struggle if they don't see it being used around them. It's different now, I suppose, because even if you live in a community that's predominantly English speaking, at least there's media that exists that, you know, creates this illusion that the language is probably is spoken more ubiquitously than it actually is.
Right.
And
Right.
I can understand that. And then of course there are, if you visibly see people in the community speaking Irish, but if you don't, I can comprehend it. But I know that you particularly struggle with that, and I think you spoke about kind of we spoke about a little bit before we started recording, just the dominance of the Catholic, despite the fact that you attended Middleton College and schools with a Protestant ethos.
Very much so.
That you still struggle with.
Very
You
much so.
probably felt the state was quite theocratic in nature, I would assume. Would that be fair to say?
Certainly in my time growing up in Ireland, it was very true. And you know, when I went to Trinity, and that's where I met my Catholic wife, by the way,
Yeah.
there was a ban on Catholics attending Trinity when I went there.
How did she get in?
McQuaid, because she came from Kenya.
That's true.
And his ruling didn't apply to Kenya.
When you mention McQuaid, you mentioned the Archbishop of
McQuaid.
Dublin, John Charles McQuaid.
That
who
was him.
Purported to have written the Constitution for Eamon De Valera.
Well, he did write some of it, didn't he? He did.
And there was a ban
Very.
on Catholics attending Trinity College
There
Dublin.
was when I was there.
Yeah.
And Trinity then turned to England and Scotland and Wales and tried to attract in people from there, and they did actually quite well.
Yeah.
So when I was in Trinity, most of the societies were in the hands of the English,
Yeah.
not the Irish. It was a silly ruling, wasn't it?
It doesn't really
Of
make sense.
McQuaid?
Yeah. I'm trying to
Don't
look at it from his
understand why he did
perspective.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that he did that's difficult to understand or didn't do. There's a lot of books that I have in my shelf here that were banned by McQuade and things like that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
do you know? So yeah, just Ed O'Brien's books and things like that.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But he
That's very true.
but you and do you know what's fascinating reading your book is how casually, and maybe it's not casual, but it reads casual, that words, you know, places like India and Kenya and Canada and these, I'm like, how? Do you know? But again, what do they all have in common? They're part of the empire. So despite the fact that you grew up in Skibbereen or in Cork,
County Cork.
County Cork, and that accent comes out every now and again.
Right.
And then a bit, you're up in Dublin, but there's kind of there's a link that you have by being Anglican that seems to allow you access to the wider empire that maybe an Irish Catholic may not have. Is that fair? Just by the associates, your wife, comes from Kenya. You know.
She was, her dad, you know this, it's all there. Her dad came from Kerry, Abbeydoney, Niadralee.
Great hurling county in Kerry.
There you are,
Yeah.
there you are. And her dad left because he became a doctor, he went to UCD, and he joined then parts of the British Empire, Australia, and then he went to Kenya, and then he went to South Africa. So Geraldine was brought up outside the Irish country, Ireland. And, I'll tell you a little story which is indicative of what was happening when she was in Dublin. We'd been going out for some time together, and we were having sex later on, and she had to go to a confession in a church in Dublin.
She had to go.
Well, she did go. I put it badly. She didn't have to go, but she did.
joking.
No, you're right, Bill. You're right. She went to confession, and she confessed this to the priest. And he said, well, you don't realise, of course, that we now have to refuse to give you, is it extreme unction you call it, or the communion?
You're challenging me possibly.
I'm sorry. Something like you can't go up and have when you receive the host and she said, well, I'm not going to stop. I have no intention of having a child of my age, and it would wreck my life. And she left the church. And she'd been a very faithful Catholic.
She's very brave to go.
It's very brave
To go and confess that when
she was.
And
She was.
Personal question, had you access to contraceptions and things like that at the time?
Very good question. You hadn't. You hadn't.
No way of getting them at all, just full stop, that was it.
Actually, what we did is we simply I had a friend who lived in Northern Ireland, and he used to buy condoms north and bring them down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could get them.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
things you think about smuggling across
We
borders,
did.
you don't think condoms would be one of the things that are so valuable. But they were. We remember
Yeah.
the women in the 80s who travelled up from Dublin to Belfast and bought every contraception they possibly could, and
That's right.
got the train back and challenged the border officers to take them off them. Like,
Yeah,
um,
that was a big incident. you know,
yeah,
very-
yeah.
yeah.
But like, and that's obviously
Very.
quite recent. Yours is further back in time.
It was, yeah, it was, yeah. Well, she left the church, and you know what? She didn't go back, which is quite interesting.
can
She
comprehend.
took that strong a stand about it, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's a little personal
No,
story.
it's a great story, and I remember reading in the book and kind of laughing to myself and thinking, this is it's very honest, but sure, it's very natural. Obviously, like it wouldn't even bat an eyelid to that kind of talk nowadays. But to think that you could get, I suppose, she excommunicated herself from the church, I suppose, but to be punished in any way for something as
Well, that's it, yeah. That's, yeah.
yeah.
So anyway,
And then you spent time outside of Ireland. You decided to travel yourself, and you moved to what we would call, I suppose, the UK. Were you in Wales or were you in England?
after I left Trinity, I spent a year teaching in Downside, which is a very posh, as you know, Catholic school.
Yeah.
And they were a very nice bunch of priests running it. Couldn't have been more friendly.
Yeah.
And then I later went to do an HDip Ed in Trinity because I decided I'd like to be a teacher. So I did that. And I went to Kenya after I'd done that. And that was really largely because of Geraldine, because she'd been brought up there and educated and everything. And she still had friends who had stayed on after independence. And lovely country, really nice. Yeah.
It is on my list of places to visit.
Is it actually?
But yeah,
Is
but
it?
it's not. I have huge interest in running and things like that, and hiking, and I'd love to see that. But it's not a place that would be on many Irish people's list of prospective countries to emigrate to. Kenya. So it is. Your story is unique in that regard.
And there was a lovely girl from Dublin who was a teacher there, and Catholic background, and I'm still in touch with her. She lives in Dublin now. Yeah. So there were some Irish out there. I wasn't on my own.
And was her father still out there? Geraldine's father, was he still in Kenya?
He died some years ago.
Okay.
In South Africa, actually.
Okay.
Where he was a doctor.
Yeah.
And retired. Yeah.
And okay, this is really interesting stuff. We're moving from Ireland. I feel like we've got a grasp of your understanding and your experience in Ireland, but Canada. What does Canada mean to you as a?
That's a very, very good question, because it is a very different country to the one I was brought up in. Now, I emphasise, Ireland has changed a lot, but I find, it's a different country in terms of its tolerance, perhaps. Irish people tend to be quite, even today, conscious of being nationalist and Irish. I don't quite get the impression here, but maybe I'm wrong, Bar, that they are. Do you think Canadians are
We're
quite nationalist or not?
I don't think so. We're recording one day after Canada Day, and it's it's the celebration.
We are.
And I wouldn't, people wear red and they celebrate, and
Yeah.
I'm sure when Canada plays the US in a hockey game, there's a big deal, and during these tariff wars and trade wars.
That's right.
But compared to Ireland, there isn't a sense of. So a fella explained to me once. I was here I lived in the US for a year, and then I
didn't know that.
Yeah, and I'd been living here for a year, and I was talking to a friend of mine, an Irish friend, and I said, "Geez, I was surprised at how unpatriotic the Canadians were." This is something I said out loud, and his understanding of it was that you're coming from your background is Ireland and then the States briefly. Two countries that gain independence through bloodshed.
Yeah,
Canada didn't.
They didn't.
And maybe that's the difference.
Right.
It was too democratic.
It was. It was.
And maybe that's why it's so tolerant. I don't know. It's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but it might be true.
If I may say to you, and I will, my son has a daughter, and she's been brought up in a school in Toronto, And here, no one cares twopence what religion you are. And they don't teach compulsorily, which I had all the time, religion in school. We used to go to church twice a day in St. Columba's College. Would you believe it?
Yeah, twice a day.
Twice a day.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, to get to the point, there's a different attitude here about education. And they do teach different religions here, but they don't concentrate on one. And I don't think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you need to have a religious background to get into a school here?
I would doubt it. Even...
Do you think so?
Even the schools that brand themselves as being Catholic schools.
There's one very near where I am.
I would still be surprised if you had to prove.
All right.
But I could be wrong. Maybe you do need to be baptised.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But you're right though. There is a huge level of tolerance, and kind of just it's noticeable by its absence. The conversations around what religion you are or where you came from, or kind of the lack of a reaction that you get from people when you tell them you're whatever nationality you are. Yeah, whatever you are. You know, they're interested, of course, but it's not. It's always kind of a neutral response, or at the very least positive. You know.
Well, I don't know about you. I've never had negative comments about me being Irish.
Yeah.
They just take it for granted.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I find anyway.
Yeah.
They're easygoing about it.
Even the phrase there, you're saying you're Irish. You know, when I was growing up,
Yeah.
I would have, again, very simplistic, childlike, creating rules for yourself. You know, well, if you were Catholic, you were Irish, and if you were Protestant, you were
British.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had that link. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's right.
For people, obviously, the majority of people listening to this would understand that that's not necessarily the case. But I don't think people think about when they think about the potential of United Ireland in the future. And I'll get your opinion on that in the future. But when they talk about that, they often think about solely north of the border. They don't think about how in the south, that as we spoke about earlier on, people like you will ignore, but how it's important maybe to learn from that lesson and how to not alienate a whole cohort of society, however small it might be. But as you said, it was 11%.
It was, and it then came down to less than 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there will be people listening to this who'll say, "Yeah, well, fuck them. Like they shouldn't have been here in the first place." This kind of theory of who came here first. And we live in a country where we're speaking about how tolerant Canada is.
Right.
None of us came here first. The people, a lot of us didn't come here first. Is what I'm saying. But I suppose my question is, going forward, how do you look at that politically at home, and do you see, does it make sense to have United Ireland, or what lessons could be learned, or what's your general opinion on it, I suppose, if you have one?
Okay. Well, I do get every day the Irish Independent and the Irish Times online, so I can keep in touch with what's going on and the debates on Northern Ireland. My view is that a lot of measures have to be taken. The north of Ireland is still pretty embedded in the UK. Okay, some Catholics don't want it, and there are others who I know in the north who are happy enough to be in the UK. And now they want to make the point, the south of Ireland, in recent polls and surveys, they have discovered most people, quite a big majority, don't want a united Ireland. And part of it is money.
Yeah.
Part of it is it would cost, because the British are subsidising Northern Ireland. We would have to pay more tax. And then things like changing the flag, changing the anthem, changing the constitution. I don't think most people do. They in the south want that. I don't see this happening.
I suppose the people I would frequent, I think they want United Ireland, but don't want any to change anything else.
I would. Yeah, that's what I'm.
So they want United Ireland, but they don't want to have to think about any of the actual. Obviously, you speak to some people who think about it deeply, and there are people who would claim that it's financially viable. It is possible, and there are people who claim it's not, and all this type of thing.
Well, Garrett Fitzgerald's son, who's a very level economist, as you know, in the south, he recently did a big survey on the. You probably know about this, do you?
Oh, go ahead.
You
go
do.
ahead.
The implications of the United Ireland financially and economically. And he said it would cost the Southern Irish government really quite a lot of money to do it. And he was kind of attacked by people like Varadkar,
Okay, people have a similar background,
Who wants the United Ireland.
Yeah. Varadkar's kind of more outspoken than Micheál Martin about this kind of topic, which is which is unusual.
It's desperate. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm told by Owen Harris, so I know, that he gets it from his background, Indian background, and he gets
I'm just saying it's unusual. You would assume it would be the Fianna Fáil side, but
you would.
Anyway, no, it's just a curious thing to discuss with someone who grew up in the Republic of Ireland.
The Republic is doing quite well, isn't it? Anyway,
seems to be, yeah.
Don't you think?
Were you living there up until 2016?
Yeah.
And how and moving here?
I did.
You're probably, and I take this in the best way. You're probably the eldest person I've had.
I'm sure I am.
Who has moved at that stage of their lives.
Okay.
Do you know?
No, I do. I understand.
I interview a lot of people and they came in their 20s, 30s.
In their 30s and
maybe.
Yeah.
But what was it like moving at that stage? You had citizenship, so there was no issue with visas or anything like that?
No, there was none of that, no.
Yeah. Lifestyle-wise, I suppose.
Well, I suppose, listen, I'll tell you one thing is, I've still got a house in Dublin. I own a house in Dublin. I paid for it. I've rented it. So at any point in time, and I am old now, I could go back to the Dublin house. It's an option I always have. But I'm okay here, I kind of settle now at this stage. Yeah. And I find Canadians easy to live with.
I agree.
Would you agree with me?
Oh, I definitely agree.
You would.
But I still see it as at that stage of life you were in, the easier option would have been, should I just stay here in Dublin? Quite. And I just tip away here. Quite. And I know it's something I know, and I've lived here for decades and all that type of thing. But you made the decision. I know you 2 children living here, but you made the kind of bold decision to say, well, feck it, I'm going to go and experience this part of my background, my ancestry. So it seems like
because my mum was Canadian. I told you all of this, and then I had also my grandmother went to Edmonton and married this Canadian guy. So there is all this history in my family of connections with Canada. Yeah.
And Edmonton was never an option to move to for you?
No, I don't think so. I don't. I'm sure it's a nice town. I don't city, sorry.
But you prefer the big kind of bigger city like Toronto, and your kids are here, so it makes sense.
As you rightly say, I've got 2 children here, which makes it an awful lot easier.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky, touch wood, wherever it is. I have good health so far.
Yeah, well, you obviously stay on top of things, and I've seen you at conferences and talks that we had.
Yeah,
I've spotted you. You didn't think I would have spotted you?
Well, could I ask you, did you go to the last one?
I was.
Was it on a Friday where I was with Bill German?
I spotted you on the way out, actually.
I'm sorry, did you?
Yeah. No, you're grand. I knew I'd be chatting to you soon. So
I'm sorry, I didn't say hello to you.
Oh, you're all right. Yeah. I knew I'd be chatting to you soon. So it's
thank you, and I gave it Wilson. I know him.
Yeah.
Do you know David?
I'd be great buddies with David, yeah. We'd be great friends, so...
I'd like to meet him again, by the way.
Yeah.
Why don't we meet again sometime when suits you?
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Brilliant. Really hope you enjoyed that chat with Robin. I provided a link below for you if you wish to purchase his memoir to hear more fascinating stories. Once again, all feedback is welcome. You can email me. My email address is in the description of the podcast, or you can find me on social media. It's always lovely getting messages from strangers and talking about the podcast and their stories of what brought them to Toronto. I would still encourage people to download the episodes and to share them with friends and family. Downloads are the easiest indicator for me to gauge how many people I'm reaching with these conversations, so I would really appreciate it. Thanks to Natalie Barbuzzi, who provided the logo for the podcast, and thanks to Shannon Heaton, who provided the music you are now listening to. You'll find all of her music on Spotify. There'll be another episode of Irish in Toronto in 2 weeks, and until then, slán go fóill.